Chapter 156, Soul Erosion. I've only just set a foot inside the door and have many questions to ask you. Han Shao himself possessed many tricks and had a dark archmage by his side. They wouldn't come off worse at all with 2 against 1. Therefore Han Shao wasn't nervous at all when he saw the necromancer float over. His figure was shapeless and unpredictable like a ghost's, and the necromancer continuously changed direction. Just when he was 10 or so meters away from the archmage necromancer suddenly waved his bone staff and chanted an incantation. An evil knight covered in black armor and dark-colored skin that measured over 3 meters tall appeared riding a howling beast that was stronger than a rhino and covered with brown scales. It raised a spiked club that was as thick as a human body as it spurred on the howling beast beneath it, charging viciously toward Han Shao and Emily. The evil knight was a dark creature that was 1 level higher than a hate warrior. Only archmage level necromancers could summon them. They came from the dark abyss of the other dimension. Their black armor held an absolute advantage in deflecting physical attacks. Combined with the charging force of the howling beast beneath them, they were everyone's worst nightmare. The evil knight immediately charged toward Han Shao and Emily when it appeared, raising its club high and bringing it down like a metal pillar. Emily immediately backed up when she saw the evil knight and murmured a dark spell. The Grim Reaper's blade from earlier had yet to vanish, and it swung towards the evil knight with Emily's manipulations. After summoning the evil knight, the necromancer didn't take another step forward but rather quickly dodged to the side, summoning a team of gargoyles to attack Han Shao and shooting bone spears every which way. Compared to fighting students in the academy, the necromancer was obviously much more experienced and had a very fine grasp on the timing of battling. He'd approached the two in an unpredictable manner just now in order to summon the evil knight, and took advantage of the short distance to charge and deny the two any chance to defend. The demon slayer edge followed Han Shao's thoughts and whirled out in flight again, infused with the flaming red spellfire, shooting towards the gargoyles making their way over. Han Shao himself chanted a bone shield spell and blocked towards the front, defending against the bone spears. After blocking 2 rounds of bone spears, the magically summoned bone shield broke apart. Han Shao's mental strength swiftly circulated and he abruptly summoned the little skeleton, giving the mental order to fight the evil knight. The evil knight on top of the howling beast was an extremely high-level dark creature. It very agilely used the metal club in its hand to block the attacks from Emily's Grim Reaper blade. The spiked club that had appeared with it was quite durable, as it didn't break at all when it collided with Emily's magic blade. You only know how to summon skeletal warriors? The necromancer was quite perplexed when he saw that Han Shao had only summoned a bizarre skeleton after swiftly chanting a spell. A leisurely smile played about his lips as Han Shao didn't respond, only mentally giving the order for the little skeleton to attack the evil knight. His 2 leg bones springing up the little skeleton's 7 bone spurs shook as he flew through the air. He clasped the bone dagger tightly in his hands as he made the first move, moving swiftly behind the evil knight like a streak of lightning. The evil knight, facing off against the Grim Reaper blade, seemed rather disdainful of the little skeleton. It only slightly shook its shoulders and shifted his black armor to cover his back. The necromancer had a mocking smile on his face as he watched as the little skeleton attacked, not worried in the slightest for the evil knight that he'd summoned. Just as the little skeleton's bone dagger was about to land into the evil knight's back, the bone dagger suddenly froze for a second and suddenly changed direction, stabbing into the evil knight's exposed neck. The evil knight, facing off against the blade's attack, suddenly emitted a string of ghastly screams as the giant's spiked club in its hand waved around wildly. Emily's summoned blade slipped past the spiked club's defense and smashed into the howling beast's body, cutting its head off, giving rise to a spray of light like a comet. The little skeleton flew over at the same time and landed on the evil knight. It blurred into motion, seeming to stab randomly into the now unarmored evil knight. The little skeleton also yanked out bone dagger that had been stabbed into the evil knight's neck, grasping it in his hand and continuously plunging it into the evil knight's body. The evil knight that had been covered with gleaming armor and riding the howling beast suddenly changed greatly. The black armor suddenly suddenly rusted over the evil knight's originally strong and gleaming body dissipated into dust, vanishing in an instant. Even the howling beast that it was riding also scattered into ashes. It was the manifestation of life being thoroughly wiped away. Emily breathed a sigh of relief when the evil knight vanished. Her highly tensed heart was finally able to calm down, and the Grim Reaper's blade also vanished without a trace. The little skeleton was the only thing remaining as it spun its bone dagger, recalling the 7 bone spurs on the ground and placing them back on its back. The jeering look on the necromancer's face had long since vanished utterly as he looked at the little skeleton with a look of incredulity. He cried out in shock, "Impossible! This is completely impossible. 100 skeletal warriors wouldn't be able to harm an evil knight. This goes against the basic tenets of necromancy theory." A faint smile still on his face, Han-Sha-Oh said very easily, "Nothing is impossible. Although I don't have as much necromancy knowledge as you, I don't think anything is illogical here." He gave an order and the little skeleton's legs shook as it took off towards the necromancer. The necromancer was greatly surprised but then immediately chuckled oddly. "Good, very good. Then let me see what secrets you have." A necromancy incantation sang out lowly from his mouth as the necromancer swiftly approached Han-Sha-Oh. Just as the little skeleton was about to bump into him, the necromancer suddenly leapt high into the air and flung out the bone staff in his hand, coming on top of Han-Sha-Oh's head. An enormous evil mental strength suddenly surged into Han-Sha-Oh through the bone staff like a magnet, attempting to subvert Han-Sha-Oh's memories. The necromancer displayed a proud smile as he said viciously to the panicking Emily, "Don't make any moves. I've already established a connection with his soul. If I suddenly die, he'll lose his soul and become an idiot." Emily was immediately stunned motionless when she heard those words. As she looked anxiously at Han-Sha-Oh, she discovered that Han-Sha-Oh was standing there frozen completely out of it, with his eyes unfocused like he was a sculpture or stone. Even the little skeleton that had just received Han-Sha-Oh's order to attack the necromancer suddenly stood there blankly looking around as he wielded his bone dagger, as if waiting for Han-Sha-Oh to give him an order. "Ha ha, this is a necromancy magic called soul erosion that I've recently grasped. I can take over a person's soul through necromancy magic and gain all his secrets after I erode his soul. I'm connected to the target throughout this process and my target will be unable to escape even if I suddenly die." "Ha ha," the necromancer started explaining proudly to Emily when he saw that his power through the bone staff had invaded Han-Sha-Oh's brain. Emily was quite frantic right now as she looked at Han-Sha-Oh, not knowing whether to fight this necromancer or not. As an archmage, Emily could clearly sense the enormous even mental strength surging into Han-Sha-Oh's body through the white bone staff over his head. She didn't dare not believe the necromancer's words. Just as Emily was utterly frantic and didn't know what to do, the originally slack-jawed Han-Sha-Oh suddenly cried out harshly as red and purple spell fire surged up his arms. His entire being seemed to be enveloped in purple-red flame as his face appeared quite contorted, his entire body full of a frightening aura. At the same time, the previously cocky necromancer suddenly had all color drained from his face as he cried out with extreme fear, "No, don't." Chapter 157. Taking all the memories of the soul, the white bone staff that had originally been hovering above Han-Sha-Oh's head had reversed directions at some time and left his head to hover over the necromancer's instead. The frightened necromancer kept chanting spells and attempted to regain control of the staff, but nothing he did would having any effect. The demon slayer edge abruptly flew out at this time and stabbed into the necromancer's chest. Red spell fire suddenly flared up over his head, whereas Han-Sha-Oh sat down cross-legged. It was his turn to chant in a low voice. The necromancer was burned to a crisp in very short amount of time as his head was encircled by red spellfire. His head was like a black cinder and it was no longer possible to make out his features. A profound incantation rang out from Han-Sha-Oh's mouth. He waved his hand and the white bone staff suddenly shot out a green light that weaved together to create a net. The net of green light encompassed the necromancer's head like a whirlpool sucking something in. A cloud of gray aura suddenly floated out of the necromancer's body and was slowly detained by the green net, just as the souls of the other dead within the surroundings had been. The net and the white staff floated in front of Han-Sha-Oh. The white staff suddenly flew into Han-Sha-Oh's hand when it reached him, while the green net got absorbed into Han-Sha-Oh's brain through his facial orifices along with the soul within it. Emily was completely gobsmacked by this sequence of events. She had no idea what was going on. She didn't understand why the previously cocky necromancer had suddenly lost his soul to Han Shao instead. After the green net and necromancer's soul were absorbed by Han Shao's brain through his orifices, Han Shao sat down cross-legged and didn't move a muscle. However, his expression continuously changed, at times joyful, enraged, and at times pained. As Han Shao sat there without moving, the little skeleton that had been standing in the daze seemed to still be perplexed. It walked around the surroundings with bone dagger in hand. When the little skeleton reached the center where the altar was, his eyes suddenly landed on the pool of blood that had been used to summon Ansidesi. Leave that place. Emily knew that the little skeleton had an unexplainable connection with Han Shao. When she saw the little skeleton run to that dangerous place, she immediately spoke up to stop him. That evil pool of blood in the center of the altar had been formed from the corpses of countless numbers of trading house guards. The necromancer had likely added in a number of devious items. Emily was quite afraid that the evil within the pool would invade the little skeleton's body if he went in. It was a pity that Emily wasn't Han Shao. Her words had no effect on the little skeleton. Her words actually had the opposite effect, as the little skeleton touched its smooth head and looked at Emily with some confusion, turning back to leap forward into the pool. Oh my gosh, not only is the master crazy, but so are the summoned creatures. Emily was going mad in her anxiety and started cursing. Emily still walked towards the altar even though she was cursing, planning on seeing how she could help the small skeleton. When she reached the altar, however, and saw that the little skeleton was splashing around happily within the pool of blood, she actually felt the emotion of joy from the little skeleton submerged up to his neck as he played like an innocent child. What's with this little skeleton? Emily didn't know what to say when she saw that all was well with the little skeleton and that he seemed to be having a great time. All the corpses that had landed in the pool of blood earlier had seen their flesh and blood immediately dissolve, with their bodies sinking into the pool without a trace, but the little skeleton hadn't seemed to be affected at all after entering the pool. This took Emily aback greatly. When she thought back to the first time she met Han Shao and how the little skeleton had seemed to be immune to many dark magics chasing her up and down the battlefield, Emily had to shake her head with a rueful smile. There were indeed some things that she couldn't explain. Suddenly Emily's lashes fluttered quickly as she looked at the pool of blood, perplexed. When looked at closely, it seemed that the blood within the pool was slowly decreasing. When Emily refocused her attention on the little skeleton, she noticed that the 7 bone spurs on the back of the little skeleton's back were absorbing the blood from the pool. This strange phenomenon made Emily cry out in shock and murmur, "My gosh, what kind of demon did he summon?" The blood within the pool was slowly absorbed into the 7 bone spurs on the little skeleton's back. When the blood began to run dry, the multitude of white bones within seemed to be affected by some power and liquefied, with the remaining blood also to be absorbed by the 7 spurs. This process had taken roughly half an hour, and everything within the pool had been absorbed by the little skeleton's spinal area. Emily discovered that the 7 bone spurs on its back had turned a bright red and subtly emitted a bloodthirsty light. They looked even more sharp and frightening than before. The pool was in a square shape and was 3 meters deep. After everything had vanished, the little skeleton was only a meter tall. He looked up at Emily, seeming to be considering how to climb up. "Out of ideas now, aren't you?" Emily huffed and planned on unfurling a rope to pull the little skeleton up. Who would know that the little skeleton would suddenly activate the 7 bone spurs on his back as soon as she spoke, and shakily flying out of the bottom of the pool of blood, landing next to the shell-shocked Emily. The little skeleton didn't even look at Emily once as he activated the 7 bone spurs again to fly next to the still meditating Han Shao. "Damn it, you're just as much of a jerk as your master." Although the little skeleton was expressionless, Emily could feel that he was smugly showing off at the moment, and she couldn't help but curse at him. She then saw the little skeleton continue to fan the 7 bone spurs and start flying around the enormous room. He started off shakily but then started leveling out. As he flew more steadily, his speed increased as well. Emily's eyes couldn't even keep up with him towards the end. Han Shao breathed out lightly at this moment and suddenly said, "It's finally done." Emily was greatly surprised and turned her head to look at Han Shao. She was suddenly mesmerized and looked at his eyes with great astonishment, forgetting to ask ask Han Sha-oh what was going on. Han Sha-oh's eyes were suddenly incredibly clear like the brightest star in the vast heavens. They were alluring and deep, giving others a feeling of impenetrable mysteriousness. What's wrong? Han Sha-oh couldn't help but stand up when he saw Emily's lovesick expression and walked over to pinch her face, asking with some confusion, "No, nothing much, just that your eyes seem brighter than before and even your presence seems to have undergone some changes." Emily brushed away Han Sha-oh's playful hand a bit bashfully. Hey, so it turns out there's a really nice side benefit to taking over the necromancer's soul. Han Sha-oh laughed gleefully. Hurry up and tell me just what is going on? Emily's curiosity was killing her at the moment as her hand snaked out and clutched Han Sha-oh's throat, asking viciously, "Cough, all right." Han Sha-oh smiled in explanation after he wrenched Emily's hands off his neck. "I told you that the martial techniques I'm training in are quite miraculous. Not only have they strengthened my body, but they've even enlarged my brain." He wanted to use the soul erosion spell just now to take over my soul and memories, but because my brain had been enlarged, I could also sense all the memories of his soul throughout this process. Logically speaking, a necromancer at my level mental strength and brain processes would definitely be far inferior to the speed at which he would erode my soul. Ordinary people wouldn't even have the time to repeat his name before their memories were co-opted. But it was a pity that the tenaciousness of my enlarged brain was something that he didn't imagine. I took over his memories before he could take mine and occupied his soul, obtaining all of his. It's that simple. Emily was gobsmacked by the explanation that came from Han Sha-oh's mouth. She looked at Han Sha-oh with an incredible look and kept shaking her head. Unbelievable, seriously unbelievable. What kind of monster are you? Hugging her fiercely, Han Sha-oh held Emily and said cheekily, all right. Don't be so surprised. We can go now." The demon slayer edge suddenly flew up and out of the necromancer's chest after he finished speaking, landing into Han Sha-oh's palm. There was a chopped off finger at the tip of the demon slayer edge with a space ring on it. Han Sha-oh took that as well. "You brat, stop flying around and come down." Han Sha-oh yelled up with a smile at the little skeleton still circling in the air. The little skeleton capered down in front of Han Sha-oh and suddenly screeched to a halt in front of him, standing on the ground waving his bone dagger. He entered the pool of blood and absorbed all of the blood and all the fragments of bone into those 7 bone spurs. Emily hastened to explain to Han Sha-oh what the little skeleton had done while he was meditating. Nodding, Han Sha-oh smiled. "I know. It isn't the first time that he's done something so daring. This is no big deal. See, he can fly now. Isn't that great? I have no idea what kind of demon you've created here. I noticed that he seems to have his own emotions now. I don't know if it was my misimpression, but when I was laughing at him being unable to get out of the pool of blood, he immediately flew out proudly from it. Truly, I could feel that he was showing off towards me, I promise." Emily looked at the little skeleton and seemed to suddenly remember what had just happened. Hey, don't be surprised. There are too many mind-boggling things in this world. I believe that what you saw wasn't an illusion, because I've had the same impression before as well. I can't really say for sure what's going on now, but I think that he'll give me an explanation as he continues to evolve in the future. Han Sha-oh wasn't surprised at all as he pointed to the little skeleton and smiled faintly. Emily started when she heard these words and looked at the little skeleton with a wry smile after a while, then shifting her gaze to Han Sha-oh. "You two weirdos. There's nothing weird about this. You must get used to everything about me, because I believe that there will only be more amazing things that will happen in the future." Han Sha-oh laughed heartily and looked to be in quite a good mood. "Brian, you're growing at such a fast speed that your future accomplishments will be hard to imagine. Perhaps I won't be able to help you with anything soon. I'm just a widow. Will you cast me aside then?" Emily suddenly seemed to think of the matters of the future as she looked at Han Sha-oh. Her beautiful eyes looked at him and asked with a bit of forlornment, "Don't be silly. I'm with you not because of what you can help me with. Even if our identities change in the future, that won't affect anything between us." Han Sha-oh looked deeply at Emily and saw her display a happy expression. He then pulled on Emily. Let's go. Let's leave. We don't need to go anywhere else. I think I've gotten what you need." The two didn't linger as they left hand in hand. The sky had just started to brighten as the two left stealthily, similar to how they had arrived. Chapter 158. reaching the sky in a single bound. The dark mantle had strongholds in any of the Lancelot Empire's cities. Naturally, Valen City was no exception. Han Shao sat cross-legged within a secret room carved out of dense rock, slowly digesting the memories from the necromancer's souls. Han Shao didn't set foot out of the secret room once within the 4 days, going through decades of the necromancer's memories. This necromancer named Clarendon had been 52 years old, and his experiences of all those years were all analyzed by Han Shao. Dozens of battles and a lifetime of studying necromancy, as well as a few secrets of his identity, were completely absorbed and memorized by Han Shao in those 4 days. There were many minor details, of course, but Han Shao was too lazy to remember those. After he'd assimilated all of the necromancer's experiences, Han Shao realized that Clarendon had been in service to an organization called the Church of Natural Disasters. As such, all his actions, including the operation against Clark, had been on the orders from the church's senior executives. He had no idea why he had to assassinate Clark. Apart from a few matters having to do with Clarendon's identity, Han Shao's greatest acquisition was the necromancer's comprehension of his path from apprentice to archmage, including the experience of every single battle and subsequent reflections. If there really was a way to reach the sky in one bound in this world, then Han Shao was doing so right now. With the theoretical knowledge and battle experience from this necromancer, Han Shao's path to archmage was crystal clear. He would be able to quickly learn many advanced magics as long as he had enough mental strength. Clarendon's experience from dozens of battles greatly broadened Han Shao's worldview and would prove to be of incalculable benefit to his future battles. The untested Han Shao took note of some matters to avoid. In this way, the practical experience gains were likely on par with that of those of necromancy knowledge. Han Shao had obtained all of the valuable aspects from Clarendon's memories after 4 days, but he didn't immediately leave the secluded secret room. He spent another 2 days to fully grasp the other necromancy magics that a journeyman mage should know. When Han Shao walked out of the secret room, he felt refreshed and in great spirits. He was greatly at ease and felt quite confident about their mission this time. "You're finally out. Mistress Emily has left orders that I must take you to her as soon as you emerge." Chester was standing guard at the door and spoke respectfully to Han Shao when the latter emerged. "Chester, why are you so serious now? I remember that you weren't like this when I first met you." Chester had spoken with a very casual tone and been quite at ease when he'd interacted with Han Shao before. Chester was now noticeably more reserved when facing Han Shao and spoke like he was speaking to his supervisor. This made Han Shao rather confused. "Brian, you'll become a great person in the future. I'm just getting used to things beforehand." Chester briefly relaxed and smiled. Shaking his head, Han Shao said leisurely, "Even if I become a great person, our relationship shouldn't be that estranged." He clapped Chester's shoulder and laughed easily. "True partners should relax. I feel rather ill at ease seeing you this solemn." All right, I know what to do. Brian, hurry up and go see Mistress Emily. She said that I had to bring you immediately to her when you emerged." Chester chuckled lightly, relaxing after Han Shao had clapped his shoulder and leading Han Shao swiftly down a brightly lit hallway. They emerged from the secret room after a few minutes, finally arriving in front of the room Emily was in. Chester winked at Han Shao, backing away with a chuckle, and only resumed his guard when he had placed some distance between them. Although Han Shao and Emily had purposefully concealed their relationship, a hint of their true status still seeped out from the tone of their conversation and gestures. As a bandit, Chester was nationally very perceptive. He had nationally discovered a few hints after spending a few days together. However, Chester was a smart man, knowing his only chance to exceed his current station in life would lie in friendly relations with Han Shao. So although he knew full well some of what was going on, he pretended he didn't. Han Shao understood this and so wasn't even slightly worried that Chester would tattle. He maintained the easy smile on his face as Chester winked, pushing open the door to Emily's room without a care in the world, not having the slightest reservations at all. "Who is it?" Emily was greatly shocked as she she cried out from within the bathroom. Han Shao-O's sharp ears even picked up a few hints of water dripping. His eyes flickering, Han Shao realized that Emily was actually taking a shower at the moment. After 6 straight days of closed-door cultivation, he'd been keeping things in for quite a while. He chuckled deviously and closed the room door, shooting straight for Emily's bathroom. Emily was a bit panicked at first, but immediately knew who had come when she heard Han Shao-O's evil chuckle. She blushed and fell back into the tub. The beauty stealer is here. A cocky smirk on his face, Han Shao circulated his magical yuan, shredding his shirt from his upper body and revealing his sturdy, domineering figure. He leapt into the bath, causing the water to spray everywhere. "You evil villain, such a rascal." Emily pouted teasingly and splashed around, seeming to protest against Han Shao-O's invasions, but her curses had turned into soul-lurching panting within the span of a few breaths. Emily's thrashing and twitching body relaxed into a long moan after a long while, and the ripples in the water finally calmed. That was beautiful. Emily sighed softly, draped over Han Shao-O's broad and firm chest. She said contentedly, "You evil little thing, I hate and love you." Han Shao was sprawled out lazily by the side of the tub and said leisurely, "It's one of the happiest things in life to be able to take such a warm soak on this cold winter day." "Oh right, what were you in a hurry to find me for?" "To ask you what you've gained through the past couple of days, of course." Emily's slender hand subconsciously kneaded Han Shao-O's back as she asked him. Han Shao took a deep breath in and thoroughly described the gains of the past couple days for Emily. Emily was incredibly shocked and looked at Han Shao with great delight. "You've gained his necromancy magic comprehension and his real-life battle experience. ? Doesn't this mean that as long as you have enough mental strength, you'll be able to quickly grasp all of the archmage level magics that he already knows?" "I think that's the logic. I've already tried to practice another journeyman level magic and discovered that I could master it quickly with the prior understanding of the necromancer. I didn't have to go through too much trial and error in the middle." Han Shao nodded. "My gosh, incredible, this is too incredible." Emily's incredulous joy doubled when she heard Han Shao's words. She kept repeating those sentences and appeared even more excited than Han Shao. "The necromancer obtained those documents from a secret room within the slave trading house. They chronicle Bob Asher's business dealings and can prove that he was involved in its operations." Han Shao handed the documents that the necromancer had taken from the secret room over to Emily after describing the situation. Although the necromancer named Clarendon had set up a magical boundary within his space ring, Han Shao broke it open very easily. He had obtained several books regarding necromancy, a few medicines for replenishing mental strength, and a few magic robes that had the effect of increasing magic power. Of course, what Han Shao was most satisfied with was still Clarendon's white bone staff. This white bone staff was specially refined for necromancers. Using this staff to cast necromancy spells would enhance Han Shao's power. Han Shao could originally only summon one bone spear when he cast the bone spear spell, but with the white bone staff he could release two at once. Even the number of summoned dark creatures would increase as well. The delighted Emily was about to say something as she held the documents that Han Shao had given to her when she suddenly thought of something. She stared fixedly at Han Shao and spoke urgently. "What organization did you say that this necromancer is from?" "The Church of Natural Disasters," Han Shao started and replied, her expression changing drastically. All the color drained from Emily's face as she spoke to Han Shao. "Don't tell anyone you killed Clarendon. I must report this to my brother immediately, especially since it involves the Church of Natural Disasters." "Oh, Lawrence came looking for you and wanted you to drop by when you had the time. If you're careful you can make your way to him." Emily hastily gave Han Shao a few more reminders and told him not to tell anyone of his involvement with the Church of Natural Disasters. She then hurriedly left for the secret room with a magic mirror that would enable her to speak with the senior executives of the Dark Mantle. Chapter 159, Leaving with the Beauty. Ever since learning of Lawrence's identity, Han Shao had been pondering how to interact with him. From the current situation, Lawrence was obviously planning on involving himself in the struggle of the princes. It was because of the mysteriousness that shrouded his identity that made his situation not that optimistic. If Lawrence really could inherit the throne, Han Shao wouldn't mind growing closer with him and would even be willing to go to bat for him, but if Lawrence didn't have this kind of strength in him, it would place Han Shao in a disadvantageous position if he were to brashly associate himself with Lawrence. Therefore, even though he was well aware of Lawrence's identity, Han Shao pretended that he didn't know and arrived at Lawrence's residence with his usual expression. The assassin Lucky was the one who showed Han Shao in. After their experience assassinating Clark, the old assassin had completely accepted Han Shao and his expression was no longer that remote. When he brought Han Shao in, Lucky said, "He's not here right now but will return at any moment. You can wait here if you're not in a hurry." Nodding, Han Shao looked at Lucky with a faint smile. "No worries, I'll wait for a while." "Oh right. You went off after Calvert afterwards, but did you get him?" "Of course, not only him but I killed his son as well." The old assassin displayed a trace of pride in his eyes. It looked like he was quite proud of his skills. Han Shu chit-chatted randomly when he suddenly remembered about Lisa and asked how right Lisa isn't present at the moment. "I'd like to check in on her." "Miss Lisa is elsewhere. Please come with me, I'll take you to her." Lucky responded and took Han Shao through a garden, arriving at a building in the quiet rear of the property. He then spoke quietly to Han Shao. "Miss Lisa's emotions have calmed down because Calvert and his son have been killed, but you'd best not bring up her family." Han Shao nodded in understanding and didn't say much. He approached the building and knocked lightly. "Is it Cousin Lawrence?" Lisa asked through the door as her voice still seemed a bit melancholic. "It's me," Han Shao responded. "Oh Brian, you've come to see me." Han Shao could hear long-awaited happiness in Lisa's voice as her footsteps rapidly drew near. Lisa opened the door and appeared in cotton pajamas in front of Han Shao. Although Lisa's features hadn't changed since her life-changing event and her naive and cute demeanor remained just as youthful as ever, a constant sorrow clouded her clear eyes. Her demeanor was such that it evoked protective feelings, a marked difference from her previous obstinate, headstrong ways. However, this week Lisa looked quite pleasing to Han Shao's eyes. He closed the door after walking in and huffed out lightly, pretending to be cold. "The weather outside is quite cold." "Thank you for killing that old dog Calvert." Lisa tugged on Han Shao's sleeve, leading him inside with her as she thanked him. A brazier was burning inside as it spread warmth throughout the house. Lisa added a few sticks of dry firewood to the brazier and then took her seat on a soft leather chair. "It was one of your cousin's men who killed Calvert, so you should thank him instead. I only caused a mess of some things." Han Shao found a seat and poured a cup of hot water for himself. "If it wasn't for your distraction, my cousin's man wouldn't have succeeded that easily." Lisa had indeed changed a bit from before. She was silent for a bit after speaking, then looked a bit fearfully at Han Shao. "You spent so many gold coins to buy me from the trading house. According to the rules of slavery, I belong to you." Starting in fright, Han Shao immediately said seriously, "Lisa, you should know that I bought you purely to save you and had no other thoughts whatsoever. In addition, it wasn't that many gold coins. We're friends after all, don't misunderstand." Lisa shook her head desolately, appearing a bit frantic as she looked at Han Shao. "Do you not want me because you disdain me now?" "No, not at all. We're friends and this is what I should do. You have your own personal freedom. I don't want you to feel guilty about those 1,000 gold coins," Han Shao hastened to say. Lisa was silent once again after speaking. "Because of Bob Asher, my family clan is completely annihilated. My status as a slave is also confirmed. You bought me in front of so many people in the trading house. This is also an irrefutable truth. Then I can return your freedom to you and lift the status of a slave from you." Han Shao thought and said to Lisa. Han Shao heard footsteps sound outside of the door and Lawrence walked in with a slight smile after a short while. He asked when he saw Han Shao and Lisa in conversation, "What are you two chatting about?" "I'm saying that I'm going to dissolve Lisa's status as a slave," Han Shao responded as he looked at Lawrence. "Give me your crystal card. I'll transfer 1,000 gold coins to you. Then you'll have sold Lisa to me through legal proceedings. Leave the rest to me." Lawrence seemed to have given the matter some thought already and responded immediately when Han Shao spoke up. "No need, Lisa is my friend. I can give her to you now. I can't take the 1,000 gold coins." 1,000 gold coins was nothing in Han Shao's eyes, and he really had held the mentality of saving Lisa at the time. Lawrence didn't insist on refusing after Han Shao but nodded at Han Shao with a smile. Lawrence said forthrightly, "All right, I'll take care of her status." However, This is Valen City and Bob Asher's territory. I'll get Lisa back to the Empire in the next 2 days. Bob Asher will be powerless even if he wants to do anything. As the third Prince Lawrence's relationship with the king was very close, there naturally wouldn't be any difficulty for him to handle such matters. Valen City was in an uproar at the moment, and there was indeed some danger to Lisa's life if she stayed here. It would be a good thing to get her as far away as possible. Lisa, I have some things to discuss with Han Shao separately. We'll be leaving first. Lawrence cast a glance at Han Shao and walked outside. Han Shao then rose to his feet and followed. The two of them walked to an artificial mountain by the side of the front yard, and Lawrence looked deeply at Han Shao, asking Brian, why have you come with Mistress Emily to Valen City this time? This had to do with secrets of the Dark Mantle, and so Han Shao naturally couldn't say much. He shook his head in apology. I'm sorry, I promised Mistress Emily that word of this wouldn't travel. Sighing lowly, Lawrence said, genuinely, you have a clean birth, and although you once had a status of a slave, it's of no matter. However, Emily is different, and her current status is old Han's daughter-in-law. Walking too close with her will affect you in the future. I think I understand your meaning, but I know what I'm doing. You don't need to worry about me. Right, if you've come to Valen City to save Lisa and kill Clark, then you're finished here. Are you leaving soon? Lawrence meant well, but Han Shao and Emily's relationship had been cemented already. Han Shao had his own thoughts and plans and naturally wouldn't change anything because of Lawrence's words of advice. Apart from this, I also promised someone to take out Bob Asher. Perhaps you can assist me? Lawrence suddenly spoke as he looked at Han Shao. Haha, you must be joking. You're inviting me to fight against the chief of the Griffin Legion. This is too laughable. I know how much I weigh, and I'll have no effect whatsoever against someone at the level of old Bob. Han Shao's eyes gleamed, but he still played dumb. Lawrence stared at Han Shao and was about to say something when Lucky's low call suddenly traveled, and we've been compromised. I think we need to retreat immediately. Bob Asher's men are on their way. Lawrence was startled and his face changed slightly. Brian, please take Lisa around the path in the yard to the back. We need to make some preparations. Time was of the essence, and so Han Shao didn't say much else. He immediately nodded decisively and suddenly moved, breaking through the door into Lisa's room like lightning. He didn't wait for Lisa to say anything as he took down a leather coat from the wall and wrapped her in it. He wrapped Lisa in it and leapt out the window, rushing for the path in the backyard. Rapid hoofbeats sounded in the distance and approached quickly. Han Shao knew that the Griffin Legion must have sent a lot of men this time. He didn't know if Lawrence and the others could make it out. Bob Asher's Griffin Legion blotted out the sky in Valen City. Even a prince would only face death if he went head to head with Bob Asher. Chapter 160. You shouldn't have chased after me. After leaving the backyard, Han Shao immediately focused his concentrations. Although he held Lisa within his arms, his speed was still as fast as lightning as he sped along the path. It was noon, but there were no pedestrians on the road during such a frosty winter. Add to that the fact that the soldiers had been turning Valen City inside out over the past 2 days. The civilians were all hiding in their homes and didn't dare to walk about. Thus, Han Shao's dashing figure rather stood out along the road. 2 airborne patrolling Griffin Knights spurred their griffins on and detected Han Shao's figure. The griffins screamed as the knights hefted their 3-meter-long spears and flew towards Han Shao. There are griffins in the air. Lisa's face was frozen red from the cold bite of the wintry air. She raised her head from her position in Han Shao's grasp and noticed a pursuit from the 2 Griffin Knights, hastily voicing a reminder to Han Shao. I know, don't worry. Han Shao had long since noted the pursuit, and he responded in a low voice to Lisa without a change in expression. His body continued to dash quickly through the scattered streets as his mind spun, searching for ways to react. Han Shao had thoroughly remembered all the places they'd passed on the way to Lawrence's. Now that they had been spotted by the Griffin Knights, Han Shao was quickly thinking of ways out. He couldn't expose the Dark Mantle stronghold, so he couldn't return there at the moment. Now that there were Griffin Legion members patrolling Valen City and 2 knights in the air had set their sights onto them, he had to quickly shake them off or find a place to kill them. Otherwise more trouble would quickly descend upon them. As his thoughts raced, Han Shao suddenly suddenly changed direction and didn't dash in and out of alleyways. He ran towards the direction of a patch of trees, circulating his magical yuan, making it so that he seemed to have a boundless source of energy. The speed of his dash was faster than the two knights' expectations. The two knights had planned on landing as soon as Han Shao had left the cover of the houses and killing him. Who would have thought that Han Shao would speed forward like he was riding a fierce and swarthy horse as soon as he left the area, catching them off guard. However, the knights naturally held an advantage being in the air. When they regained their composure, they spurred their griffins onwards to catch up to Han Shao and circled above the trees, locking their sights onto Han Shao. They were already a few li away from where Lawrence lived. Han Shao had observed for a little bit just now and noticed that only these two knights were pursuing him, so he hadn't been unduly worried. His body halted as soon as he entered the cover of the trees and suddenly came to a complete stop, swinging Lee Sin up and around him so that she was on his back. "Hold on tight and don't let go no matter what," Han Shao ordered lowly. She nodded her head docilely and said resolutely, "I understand. I won't let go even if I die." "Don't worry, we won't be the ones to die," Han Shao comforted Lee Sin confidently and took out a firm supple rope from his space ring. He firmly tied Lee Sin onto his back to prevent her from sliding off halfway through. Han Shao gripped the Demon Slayer edge in his right hand after doing all this and looked coldly at the two Griffin Knights hovering overhead, preparing himself to kill two men and two beasts. "Let's see where you'll run to now." A Griffin Knight laughed disdainfully overhead, shaking the sharp spear in his hand and digging his heels into the Griffin beneath him in an odd way. The Griffin, circling in the air, suddenly screamed out bizarrely and dived down toward Han Shao. The metal claws of the Griffin could rip apart a buffalo. As it dived down toward Han Shao like this, the aura formed by its enormous body and the knight's coldly gleaming spear was enough to stun an enemy senseless. The other Griffin Knight moved his steed closer to Han Shao but didn't immediately make a move. The arrogance and disdain on his face seemed to indicate that having one out of the two of them was more than enough to take care of Han Shao and that his attentions weren't needed at all. Han Shao's demeanor was aloof and remote as he held his ground without moving, staring intently at the diving knight and griffin. A white bone staff suddenly appeared in his other hand when the griffin's metal claws was skimming the tops of the trees, and Han Shao quickly released a dark mist spell. With the enhancing effects of this bone staff, the area of coverage by Han Shao's dark mist spell had increased by 1/3, completely enshrouding an area that measured 10 meters in diameter. "Ugh, damn it, I can't see anything," the Griffin Knight bellowed furiously, some panic evident in his tone of voice. He'd been chasing after Han Shao all along and had witnessed Han Shao's speed with his own eyes. That agility was something that a strong swordsman should possess, and a sword-shaped Demon Slayer edge had appeared in his hand when he'd reached the treetops, his posture completely resembling that of a swordsman. However, when it really came down to the actual fight, a white bone staff had suddenly appeared in Han Shao's hands and he'd released a dark mist spell in the nick of time. This greatly astonished the Griffin Knight, who'd also fallen into Han Shao's trap. The diving Griffin Knight exclaimed in astonishment, alerting his companion that something was wrong. His companion moved quickly, intent on coming over to rescue his comrade. It was too late. A streak of bizarre incandescent red fire flared strikingly through the dense black mist. It was like it wasn't affected by the dark mist spell at all, displaying a heart-stirring arc and tracing a long bloody path. The griffin screamed bizarrely in pain as the knight yelled hoarsely, the cries rising at almost the same time as that fey red fire. Screams that would strike fear into people's hearts as the long bloody line painted itself through the patch of dark fog. It was only when that bizarre red fire extinguished itself did the despairing cries of agony finally fall silent. The other Griffin Knight that had arrived in the area listened to the screams with his scalp tingling with numbness. He couldn't see what was occurring and could only frantically repeat his questions. "Camper, what's wrong? What's going on?" He kept calling out but didn't dare to approach the black mist. He only observed from a distance. The dark mist was a spell that took effect swiftly and also dispersed quickly. As the chilly wind blew, the black mist that had coalesced quickly vanished in a short period of time. Han Shao still stood where he was and had a cruel cold leer on his face. Lee Sin on his back had her eyes tightly shut, burying her head into Han Shao's neck as she couldn't bear to look upon the scene. A bloody mess of severed limbs and hacked off flesh was scattered around Han Sha-oh. Some belonged to the Griffin Knight and some to the Griffin. A thick scent of blood attacked the nose as Han Sha-oh was stepping on a head that was slowly leaking brain fluid. It was as if he'd just been baptized by blood as he was covered in the gore, making his leer appear even more horrifying. Dry retching suddenly sounded from the Griffin Knight. He turned his griffin immediately, fearfully trying to make his escape. "Do you think that you're the only one who can fly?" Han Sha-oh's leer split in a laugh. He activated the mnemonic art of the ninth heavens and took to the air, shooting towards the Griffin Knight like lightning with Lee Sin on his back. He arrived behind the Griffin Knight before the latter had traveled too far. Two bone spears shot out and stabbed into the Griffin's rump, making it scream shrilly. It actually turned and shot toward Han Sha-oh with the Knight on its back. After the experience of his initial panic and the fact that his steed was now charging toward Han Sha-oh of its own volition, he quickly understood that Han Sha-oh could also fly through the air and that there was no opportunity for him to escape. He therefore hefted his spear and took aim at Han Sha-oh. Every Griffin Knight was at least a senior knight. Therefore when he hefted his spear it flared out with dark green fighting aura as if silver lightning were traveling through the air, after making use of the Griffin's momentum to hurtle towards Han Sha-oh. Han Sha-oh had just used the sharp Demon Slayer edge to slaughter a Griffin Knight along with his Griffin. There was an uncontrollable bloodthirst rising in his heart. It was as if there was a voice spurring him on in his heart that told him to keep killing in such a gory manner. It happened to provide the perfect outlet for his emotions as he saw the Griffin Knight charge towards him. Han Sha-oh threw his head back in a long howl and flew over with the leer. The Demon Slayer edge hadn't appeared to be particularly long before, but with the circulation of the glacial mystical spellfire, a 2-meter-long purple and red light spat from the tip. The purple light was out in front and the red light connected to the Demon Slayer edge in the back. The weapon looked quite magical. Even with Lee Sin on his back, Han Sha-oh's speed wasn't much slower than the Griffin Knight's as he flew using the art. His magical Yuan circulating at top speed. Han Sha-oh emitted a dense killing intent that seemed to materialize as a black aura around his body. When viewed from afar, Han Sha-oh's figure with Demon Slayer edge in hand was like a shooting star falling towards the ground. A ball of dazzling splendor exploded from where the two intersected. A deafening metallic clang reverberated in the surroundings. The spellfire-infused Demon Slayer edge shot out a meter of cold purple light, crashing into the fighting aura emitted by the long spear. The spear was immediately churned into dust as it was ravaged by the violent magical Yuan. A bone-piercing cold immediately crept over the knight's body. He reacted but didn't have time to make a move before Han Sha-oh coalesced a red spellfire meter tall. The blood veins in the knight's right arm gripping the silver spear suddenly exploded beneath the piercing cold and burning heat. His muscles started sliding off his bone like they'd been doused in acid as droplets of blood escaped from his arm. "You shouldn't have chased after me," Han Sha-oh leered at the horrified Griffin Knight. The Demon Slayer edge started flying according to his will afterwards and hacked off the Griffin's metal claws. The Demon Slayer edge then hewed downwards and spliced the Knight and Griffin's body into two like he was cleaving apart a mountain. Fresh blood splattered like rain down towards the trees. The two Griffin Knights had now died grisly deaths at Han Sha-oh's hands, but Han Sha-oh actually had an unsated feeling. His heart trembled as he suddenly came to his senses, finally understanding why he had such a fervent desire to slay and slaughter. Since his demonic magic had reached the true demon realm, Han Sha-oh had thoroughly become a demon. It was the first time that he'd had overwhelming power and would find it difficult to control the urges deep within his heart, particularly as the next realm was the most dangerous bloodlust realm. As one began to enter the bloodlust realm, the practitioner would start to have the desire to erupt in full-blown slaughter in every battle. It was a good thing that since he hadn't yet entered the bloodlust realm, Han Sha-oh could still control his thoughts and desires. It would become harder to control his bloodthirsty desires once he reached the next realm. He wouldn't be able to stop once he started fighting unless he saw blood, becoming an extreme gore-seeking violent demon. He exhaled lightly and privately reflected that practicing demonic magic was truly a perverse way. However, The exhilaration of fighting and killing today made him feel damn good, and his entire being seemed to strut around like a new person. Over there after him, the battle screams of horses came in from the distance. Han Sha-O hovered in the air and swiveled his head, seeing that a troop of Griffin Legion cavalry was quickly approaching him. This troop was formed only by earthbound knights. Han Sha-O wasn't afraid that he'd be unable to shake them off. Snorting coldly, Han Sha-O flew downwards and picked up speed to leave when he was level with the trees. "You know how to fly." Lisa suddenly put her lips next to Han Sha-O's ears at this time and exclaimed with astonishment at this time.